What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for February 16th, 2023. Let's start with today's Philly Sports Black History Spotlight. We're going to take a look at Earl the Pearl Monroe, who's also known as Black Jesus. Little fun fact here, if you've ever watched the movie He Got Game with Denzel Washington and Ray Allen, Ray Allen's character's name is Jesus Shuttleworth. In the movie, Denzel, who was his dad, said he gave him the name because of Earl Monroe and just being a huge fan of his, and that was his name. So just a little Hollywood fun fact for you guys today. But Earl Monroe was born in South Philly, graduated from Bartram High. When he was in high school, his teammates would call him Thomas Edison because of all the moves he invented. He sort of started evolving the game a little bit and taking it to some of the spots where we know where things are today. Played a lot of basketball on the South Philly playgrounds, and that's where he came up with some of these moves. And I guess he was just kind of a playground legend. He did go to Winston-Salem State, where he won the Division II championship and the tournament MVP in 1967. Everybody thought that the Pan Am Games, he was going to be one of the representatives for the United States, but the coach left him off because his game was, quote-unquote, too black. And I think a lot of that had to do with him having some of those flashy moves and I'm picturing, and from what some of the research I got, kind of like the N1 mixtapes. He was sort of the precursor for that. And I guess it didn't fit into whatever style they wanted. And it's something that always left a scar with Earl, and something that he still says to this day, like, really stings him. And basically spent his life then fighting against inequality. He's been honored many times for his work, specifically in fitness and youth and the well-being of black youth, and trying to get them healthy and overcoming some of the things that they experience. In the NBA, he was the second pick in the 1967 draft of the Baltimore Bullets. Things didn't really necessarily work out, I think, the way he expected. He was trying to force a trade. One of the teams he wanted to come back to was the Sixers. Unfortunately, he never did come back to the Sixers. He was traded to, of all teams, the Knicks. But overall, he played 13 years in the NBA, won an NBA championship. Was a four-time All-Star, 1968 Rookie of the Year. His numbers retired by both the Wizards and the Knicks. He obviously is a Hall of Famer. He was on the All-50th and All-75th anniversary teams for the NBA. Done so much in the community, working toward fighting some of those inequalities and helping black youth become more fit and just more worried about and focused on their well-being and becoming just healthier, more well-rounded individuals. So shout out to you, Earl the Pearl Monroe, for all of your work as well as your phenomenal NBA career for today's Philly Sports Black History Spotlight. Sticking with basketball today, Sixers update. They did beat the Cavs last night, 118-112, which is a big game for them. Not real sure what happened in the second half. I'll be honest, I did fall asleep. They were up like almost 30 at halftime. And I'm not really sure whether it was kind of like they were just kind of packing it in because the All-Star break is coming up, or what it was. They were just kind of looking ahead and went on cruise control. But things kind of got stagnant. However, in the standings, that's what it counts as. So we'll take it. Like I said, a win is a win, especially when the team is behind you in the standings. But we will take it from there. No new Eagles updates today, which I guess is a good thing. And basically what we're looking at now is we're just prepping for the draft. It's time we got to figure out who's going to take over these coordinators positions. But it still hurts. We're still mourning, but I think it's time to turn the page and start looking ahead to the draft. We will, this afternoon, I'm going to record the new episode of Back to the Future with a PH, anywhere you get your podcast. We're going to kind of put a bow on this Eagles season. And while we're in mourning and while we're in pain, why not just go and take a look at some of the worst losses in Philly sports history? So if you want to just commiserate with me, be sure to check that out later this evening once I post it. And we'll see where this Super Bowl ranks in the hierarchy of all-time Philly bad losses. And unfortunately, there's quite a few of them. But let's take it back to 1970. On this day, February 16th, 1970, Joe Frazier, Smokin Joe, defeated Jimmy Ellis when Ellis's trainer, Angelo Dundee, threw in the towel after the fourth round in their championship fight up in Madison Square Garden. Frazier was able to win the WBA and WBC title belts. This was after Muhammad Ali was stripped of the belts. Ellis had won a tournament for the WBA belt after he won the tournament, and Joe Frazier was like, I want no parts of this tournament because even though they had that huge rivalry, he didn't agree with Muhammad Ali getting stripped of his title belt. So he's like, I don't want any parts of it. But once Jimmy Ellis won, it set up the match for Joe Frazier. And Joe Frazier just dominated him. Ironically enough, Angelo Dundee was Ali's trainer as well, but we'll get into that in future episodes of things. But by Frazier winning, it set up Ali, who was going to be reinstated and released from jail and everything. And for those of you who don't know, Ali was stripped of the belts and basically spent some time in jail because he protested the Vietnam War. He was drafted, didn't want to go over because it went against his religious beliefs. He did convert into Islam, but he's famously said, no Viet Cong ever called me a bad name or something along those lines, where he's like, I don't have any beef with these people. Like I'm being a pawn in this war, and really stood up for his beliefs and lost a lot. I mean, everybody says he's the greatest, but think about what he could have done if he didn't lose like a 3-year chunk of his career because of all of the protests. But Frazier winning set up Ali-Frazier I the following year up at Madison Square Garden, and we will get into that next month on this week in Philly, or this day in Philly sports history. One of the three great just battles between these two guys. But for now, on this day in 1970, Joe Frazier won the WBA and WBC heavyweight championship belts by defeating Jimmy Ellis when he retired. They called it retire, but Angelo Dundee was like, you're done. Like I watched the replay of the fight because it was only 4 rounds. Joe Frazier just completely dominated. Another little fun fact, on the undercard of this, George Foreman extended his winning streak, I think, like to 20. So lurking kind of in the shadows was George Foreman, and they were on the same fight card. So boxing was a lot of fun back then. And just a little preview, and I know I'm talking a lot about Back to the Future today on this podcast, but we are going to wrap up the Eagles season later today. Next week, I'm super, super excited. I'm going to have my dad on, who is the biggest Ali fan that I know, and I want to kind of talk about the Joe Frazier-Ali rivalry and just get his perspective, because to me, boxing was huge in the late 60s, actually probably even before that, but I just remember talking to him about boxing and how it was being so huge. But in Philly, we don't necessarily see Joe Frazier being as big as he probably should be. And like, he was a dominant heavyweight during a time when everybody watched heavyweight boxing. So I kind of want to get my dad's perspective on why he became an Ali fan and not so much Frazier, because of Frazier being the local Philly fighter. Also, just kind of pick his brain. It's very appropriate now. I was hoping to go the other way with it, but now that the Eagles did lose the Super Bowl, just kind of get his perspective as a lifelong Philly fan who's almost 70 years old now, and just see where this Super Bowl ranks in his kind of hierarchy, how he grew the callus skin and everything like that. So definitely be on the lookout for that next week. I'm very excited. But like I said, on this day back in 1970, Joe Frazier won the WBA and WBC title belts. Big win for the Sixers heading into the All-Star break. No news on the Eagles. Be sure to check out Back to the Future later tonight or tomorrow or this weekend. And big shout out to Earl the Pearl Monroe for a great NBA career representing the city of Philadelphia, as well as all his work with the community and everything he's done for black youth. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.